Hey guys, welcome back to Thread and Glue. I'm going to do a preparations video for our quilt that we're fixing to start. And this is the quilt pattern. It is called Labyrinth and it's by Calico Carriage Quilt Designs. And in the pattern, it has the measurements to do a lap size quilt, a twin size quilt, a queen size, or a king size. I will be making the king size, but you quilt along and do whatever size fits your home. A couple of things. I have gone ahead and cut out all of the fabric. The reason that I did that instead of showing it is because of copyright issues with the pattern. I don't want to be in copyright infringement by showing all of their measurements. That's like the key part of their pattern. So I won't be cutting with you on film for the video, but we will be going over arrangement, everything from the point after cutting. If you see here, you'll notice that I have taken a scratch piece of paper and cut it out and put the number of the section that it is. In the pattern, it gives everything is that you cut up is given a section. And so I have numbered it, each section, according to it. This is really important so that you can keep a hold of what is supposed to happen when. Because as you're putting it together, it will tell you to put certain sections together to make different blocks. So with that said, I'm going to swing you over here. It is not required, but it is helpful if you have an ironing surface set up next to you. This is a little ironing board that I made out of an old TV tray, and it works great. And I can tell you how to do that if you have an old TV tray and want to do that. But it's not required. It's not necessary. You can do this with any ironing board. You just want to set it up so that it's close to you, so you can do the ironing as you go. Over here, you'll see I have my machine on, and this is the Beast. Welcome to the Beast, everybody. And on my screen, you'll see my stitches that are available. Now, there are many stitches in this machine, but the only one we'll need will be a straight stitch. And so what I've got set up here now, there's a number 1 that's a straight, number 2 that does back and forwards automatically on the ends of it, and we're going to skip down here to number 4. Number 4 has a P beside it, and it's 1/4. That's my 1/4 inch stitch. What that means is that when I'm sewing down here with my foot, if I put that 1/4 inch stitch on there, from the center position, the position that the needle goes to, it will be 1/4 inch to the edge of my foot. Now, there are lots of different ways you can do this. I personally really enjoy a 1/4 inch foot rather than doing it that way. I do still use that measurement, but in here you'll see different feet that I have. There are walking feet. This is a walking foot, and it's great for bulky stuff to help move it along. Not required, again. And I'm trying to see where my 1/4 inch foot is, where I've done with it. Ah, here it is. This is a 1/4 inch foot, and the foot, it's a 1/4 inch foot because it has this little guard right here on the side, and that guard is what keeps your fabric from going over where you need it to sew. So really, it's a handy thing to have, not required. The other option that you can do if you're worried about going over your line here is you can stack up some painter's tape right here, and it will create a little bump up, and you can just butt your fabric up against that. Some machines are prone to the thread breaking because with the new machines they will cut off too short. And so this is just a little scrap piece of fabric, and what you do is before you sew anything else, and it keeps you from getting those little bunched up stitches that sometimes happen. You can put this under your foot and you sew all the way down it, and when you get towards the edge, you don't cut it off. It's called a leader, and you also have one at the end called an ender. And you just put your fabric right up next to it and let it continue on to stitch through, and that'll keep you from having that problem. One thing I'm going to go over with you right now is how to prepare your machine. There are a couple of things you need to do when preparing your machine. So I'm going to put you on the arm here. Hopefully I don't make anybody nauseous twisting you around. And there we go. I think that's going to give you a decent view there. Well, if it'll hold up there. Okay. So every machine has a faceplate here. Some machines have a screw on a couple of sides of it that holds it in. If yours has the screws, you'll want to unscrew those, but do not lose those. You will need those screws, and they're hard to come by. You have to order them special. Some machines like mine, let me move this out so you can see. Mine has a button right here. It's a trigger, and when I push the button, it pops that up and off for me. So whichever way you do it, you will want to pull that plate off because your machine needs to be clean before you start any new project. So you'll take your bobbin out and you'll check it out here. Now, with most machines, you will get a little brush that you clean with. And if yours does not have it, if for some reason you got a used machine and it didn't have a brush with it, you can get one at Walmart or anywhere. But honestly, guys, a little bitty small paintbrush works better than these. This is just one I got at the Walmart, but it's a little bit too big here. And so it really works better if you just use a little bitty paintbrush. But you'll want to, this is the bobbin case, and you'll notice that the bobbin case here has a little jotted out point that it connects against that. That's important to remember because that's how you're going to put your little case back in. So pull that case out, and you'll want to dust it off. Be sure and get inside really good. Do the back of it and set that aside. Now you'll be on the inside of your bobbin case. In here, dust collects like crazy. You would not believe how much dust is collecting. Oh, I've got a sequin in there. Well, that's no good. How do you get a sequin out? Ah, just like that. Okay. So just dust that out really good. Get any little dust particles that you see in there out. And there will be little chunks. I mean, it's really crazy. And then you'll want to dust out from here. Never use spray air to dust out your machine because it pushes all of that back into your machine. So go through here, dust all of this out. Be sure you get like underneath here because a lot of times stuff will pile up in there. And mine's pretty well dusted out. I've already done that once, but I wanted to be sure and tell you how to do it. See, there's a little dust bunny that came out that I missed before, and that kind of stuff will happen. You have to get that stuff out of there so your machine will run at its best capacity. Okay, and once you've got all of that dusted out, you've got a couple things. First, you want to check this case. Every machine is different. Some machines will need to be oiled and some machines will not. You'll have to refer to your manual for whether yours does or not. But a lot of the older ones require a lot more oiling than the newer electronic ones. This machine is the Janome MC6650. And the beast requires 1 drop of oil in that little wick right in the very center. So I just get oil from the store. It's for a sewing machine. This is by Dritz. And it's really inexpensive and you get a lot of it. So you just pull the cap off and lean that over the wick and put a drop in there. And that's it. 1 drop and it's done for mine. Others will have places to oil throughout, and that's okay. It just depends on your machine. So be sure you know your machine's manual about oiling, because the oiling is very important for your machine. I've got all kind of sequins up in there. I was really doing some crafting the other day. I didn't realize they were getting all inside my machine. Okay, so now we're ready to put our bobbin case back in. And this right here, if you can see, is the little part that I was talking about that sticks out. That part will go against the little metal part right here. And that's how you know where your bobbin case gets put back into. So it'll just wiggle it a little bit until you get it in there, in the right spot. And there mine's in. You can see it doesn't move by itself very easily because it's bumped up against that, and that's what you want. And before any quilting project, you want to wind bobbins. So we're going to go ahead first and put our case, our little plate back on, and it just slips in there. Mine, you just push down here on this circle, and it puts it back in. For some of them, you will have those screws, and you will have to put those screws back in there. If we come over here, I hope I can get this in the angle. Excuse my messy craft area over there. Okay, I am going to be using a white thread. Now, actually, I'm going to use a light gray on this quilt. The reason I'm using light gray is because light gray tends to blend into most fabrics, and so there's not a problem. This is the one I'm going to use. There's not a problem with it showing very much. And my quilt, I'm taking this cap off. This cap is important that you take off. There are small ones and big ones, so keep a hold of that because that keeps your spool in place when you're unwinding your thread. And when you take your thread off your machine, you want to clip your thread up here. I don't think you saw me where I did that, so I'll move you a little bit. Right there. See where my scissors are? I cut my thread right there. You want to pull your thread out from the bottom down here. The reason you pull it out instead of pulling it up and saving that thread is because when you pull it up, there's dust and stuff that collects right here on this bar, and you can pull that dust back up inside your machine when you do that. So you don't want to do that because it causes you to have more maintenance quicker. Okay, so we've got our thread, and oh, this little thing is not wanting to hold. Let me see if I can tighten it a little bit. I think that may do it. Yeah. Okay, so pull the rest of your thread off. And a lot of machines will just have a little stick that sits right here on your machine, and that's fine. That's where you will put your thread. My machine has a stick back here, and the first place that I put my thread is through this loop right there. And let me see if you can see that. There you go, through that loop right there. And we're going to pull our thread down. First thing we're going to do is wind several bobbins so that we don't have to stop, unthread our machine, and go through it in the middle of our quilt. So we're going to look down here, and it gives a visual on your machine. Every machine, except for the really old ones, has it. And it will show you how to wind your bobbin. So you're going to, for me, I'm going to put it under this little hook, and I'm going to come over to this part right here. This little, it looks like a little screw with a gap right there. That's important. You want your string to go in that gap because that's your tension for your bobbin. So go through there, and then we're going to come back over here. And right here is where we need our bobbin at. So I'm going to get out some bobbins, and we're going to wind a couple of them and get those ready. And that way we will have them prepared for our, I'm going to wind 4 of them. Actually, I'll wind 5 of them. I'll take that other one off. Because you do go through quite a bit of thread, especially in your bobbin, and you just really want to have that ready. And the thread color you're using more than likely is one that you use a lot of anyway. And for me, I use this light gray for a lot because it blends into most fabrics. So you'll want to take your end right here and see how that's curling. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to fight with that. So I'm going to nip that off right there. And then you're going to take the end of your thread, and there is a hole in every bobbin. And you want to put that thread through the top hole. Now you may already know this, I don't know, but some people may not. So I wanted to be sure and cover everything. You'll want to hold your little tail up here on the top. And for me, I just push that over to the side. Now, some machines, when you push that to the side, it engages it and it starts spinning. And that's okay. Keep a hold of your thread because you don't want the thread to get tangled up in the bobbin. For me, I have a button right here that is a bobbin, a picture of a bobbin. And so I will push that, holding my thread. Now I'm stopping it. So if you're started with this, you would pull this away, okay? And to stop it. Now I'm going to nip off that little thread off the top because it's wound in there good. And then I will push the bobbin button again for mine, or you would push yours over. And your machine will automatically feel it, and it should be going up and down to feel it evenly on the bobbin. So once your bobbin is wound, it will automatically stop. When it stops, that's when your bobbin is at its fullest capacity. That's as full as your machine will allow it to be. So you'll see mine stopped and it flipped this open to make it come undone. Some machines won't do that. Some machines will just stop and you'll pull that over. Okay, so what you'll do now is you'll take your scissors and you'll nip that thread right there, and that bobbin is fully wound and ready. That's a perfectly wound bobbin. Okay, so we will do that for 4 more bobbins, and you just keep it threaded, so all you have to do is keep putting it in your little hole. You don't have to thread it every time that way. So it's pretty quick to do a bobbin, but it's aggravating to stop in the middle of a project, and that bobbin, oh, see, I lost a hold of my thread there. That doesn't work. See, it unwinds. So pull that back through. Try that again. And hold on to it good. Okay, now that it's gone a little bit, I can nip it. And let it finish doing. This is going to be such a fun project, you guys. I hope you will try and join me to do this. If nothing else, just watch it and see if you think it would be something you can do. It's really, really easy once you get the hang of it. The hardest part is the math and cutting. And it's only the hardest part for me because we weren't taught the different parts on the ruler in school. So I always have to go to my dad and ask him, because he's a carpenter, where that certain measurement is on a ruler. And you'll learn it. There's actually pictures online that you can get. I think I printed one off of Pinterest that will tell you where the measurements are. So that's helpful too, if you don't have a dad that's there to do your measurements. But it's going to be super fun, and you will be so proud of your achievement when you get done. My first quilt that I ever made, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But I did. I made it through, and I still to this day have no clue how I did it. But I did it, and I've made a couple of quilts since then, and they've all worked out beautifully. A lot of people think that quilts have to be absolutely exact or they're no good. And that's, you know, if you're a perfectionist, maybe in your world it is. But for those of us that are not a perfectionist, we can usually finagle and fiddle around with the seam enough to make it work. Yes, there are some cases where you're going to have to just start over and redo it. And that's okay. That's why on my first quilt, I just used scrap fabric that I had laying around. And I just used it to do my quilt with, and it turned out good. But there were some measurements that I did that were off, but it still turned out to be a nice quilt. And I'm still really proud of it. So don't fret if this is your first one. Enjoy the process. Don't get hung up on the do this and do that, because you'll drive yourself insane. We've only got one more bobbin here to do, and then we'll go through threading our machine. But first, before threading our machine, you should start out a new project with a fresh needle. The only reason you would not put a new needle in for a new big project like this would be if your needle has barely been used. Then you don't have to. And as some people, now quilters and sewists alike, will say, oh, I don't change my needle out until it breaks. And that's okay, but when it breaks, you run the risk of that piece getting lost inside your machine. And you also, your machine does not have as easy of a time in doing the stitches because your needle gets dull. Okay, that was our last bobbin. So let's come back down here to our bobbin tray. I'll get you good and close, I hope. That I did not mean to stop that. Okay. So we're at the point we're going to do our bobbin. You want to pull your little tab right here that lets your release of your bobbin case lid. And you're going to take one of your bobbins, and your thread should be coming off counterclockwise. So that means that instead of going like this with your clock, you're going to go like this. Your thread should be coming off back here. So when you put this in there, you want to slip it down in there until it fits. My machine, to thread it, it again has a diagram, but it's every machine that is top loading threads this way. There's a little metal piece right here. Your thread needs to go behind that, and it wraps around and all the way around this little piece right here to this little jotted in part. That jotted in part is going to cut your thread off for you. So just pull against it and it cuts that thread. Some machines have the bobbins that go on the inside, where your machine is flat down here. They'll have your bobbin down here. Now those will wind a little bit differently. It's going to depend on your machine. So once you're threaded, you want to put your bobbin case lid back on and put your spare bobbins aside so they're ready for you. And then we want to look at our needle. So we're going to put our foot down, and to change out a needle, let's see if I can get you down here any better. I think that's got you where you can see. To change out the needle, there's a screw here on the side. Now, if it is too tight, there is a little flat head, so you can use your little screwdriver that came with it and unscrew that. If it's not, like mine, I keep just tight enough, you'll pull your needle down and out, keeping a hold of it firmly. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need is a needle. And for quilting, I typically will use either an embroidery needle or a universal needle. And I'm going to use a universal needle. For all Janome machines, if you don't know, Oregon needles are the same as the Janome needles. They make the Janome needles, so they'll work perfectly fine in your machine. The needles will come in this little case, and some needles come in a plastic case, but this comes in like a little gum wrapper, is what it looks like to me. But just open it up, and you'll pull one of the needles out. Set it aside, and fold your other ones back up and put them up right away. You don't want to lose them because you'll need them. You'll need them more for later. And just put them back in their case and store them that way, because it always has your size of your needle on the packaging. That way you always know what needle is in there. Okay, we have our needle, and look at the needle. There's a flat side on the needle. Do you see it there? It is flat across here, and it's rounded the rest of the needle. It's that flat side that goes to the back when you put it inside your machine. there is a little hole underneath right here where you, let me see if it's getting in there. Yeah, right there, and you want to slide it up in there as far as it will go. While you're holding it up in there, you'll want to tighten your screw back up as tight as you want it. And then your needle is in there securely. So the next thing we will need to do is to thread our needle. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I did not mean to flop you around there. Let me see where I've got my camera at now. Oh, it's flipped. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. We're going to go back up here where our thread started. And it does still go through the little metal loop there. And every machine is different. Now, yours will tell you on the top exactly how to thread yours. Mine has a diagram here that you can see that tells me to go through this upper loop and through there. And then it shows me to continue going on. And they're numbered step by step so you can thread it. So you'll pull through there. There's a little catch right here that you want to catch in there. And that's another part of your tension. Come around this metal piece and down the track and around. This is another tension area. Up, and you always want to go over the little metal hook that's right here and around. Oh, you can't see that, can you? Can you now? Ah, there we are. This little metal hook right here, you want to go over it, around, and come down. And then we're going to work our way down. I hope I've got it where you can, nope, I've got it too far down for you. Okay, we're going to come down, straight down, and this is another hook area that you have to get behind for it. Now, one place that most people new will tend to forget or miss when they're threading is this little bitty metal piece right here. I hope you can see that. I don't know if I'm getting it in there good. This little bitty metal piece right here, it's right in front of where that screw was, where you put your needle in. So you'll put your thread right behind it and it catches. There's a little catch there that you can feel. Now, this point, you will either take it and thread it through the eye of your needle, or if your machine does an automatic threading, then you'll put your thread through the automatic threader and push it down so that it goes through and threads it. And then you'll just pull your thread out the back of it, which I think I've got mine tangled up here. I tend to be a little more difficult with mine for some reason. I don't know why I am. Okay, so there's our thread. You'll want to lift your presser foot, and that's the lever that's back behind your foot back here. You'll want to put your thread through the middle of your foot and pull it to the back. Okay, now your machine is threaded. It has its bobbin, its thread, it's ready. It's ready for your sewing. Change out your foot if you want that changed out. And then we're ready, you guys, so we can start this journey together. I hope this has been a good, informative video for you. And if there's anything that you have questions on or you'd like me to answer for you, don't hesitate to ask. Everybody is new at some point and needs to learn those small things. So I hope I did this good for you. And I'll look forward to us getting started on putting that quilt together in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.